So do you want to talk about Canton, Massachusetts again and some of those characters that are involved?
Oh, we can do that. I'm fairly prepared for that one.
Okay. Fairly?
Huh?
Fairly prepared?
Fairly?
Fairly? Not all the way?
I'm never all the way.
I am not either. We're just having a conversation.
That's a commitment.
I did some digging, so I know a little bit of information about backgrounds and stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, welcome back to the Jury Dropouts
Hi.
podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Jamie.
Hey, I'm Marissa.
Who you can't see.
Nope.
Still, one of these
Maybe
days.
we can
Pay no attention.
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Maybe we could see you in the reflection of the TV.
Can ya?
Yeah,
A little
maybe.
bit. A little bit. I can't because
She's staring at the screen.
That's all right.
Anyway,
So how long have we been talking about not just Massachusetts, but Sandra Birchmore? That's probably one of the first ones that we ever talked about before we even started
because
this.
because I mentioned her when we started talking about Karen Reed and that whole saga, and said, all this stems from what happened with Sandra Birchmore, who is a young gal that was unalived from Canton, Massachusetts, which is where the Karen Reed trial took place.
And was originally ruled suicide
Right.
by hanging.
Right.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, so how it kind of started was she worked at a school, and the school hadn't seen her for a few days, and they tried to contact her and had no success, so they called law enforcement, which is in Canton, Massachusetts, a familiar town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked about that place before. So the police arrive, and they knock on the door. Nobody answers. They contact their sergeant, which is another familiar name, and that was Sergeant Lank. And so Sergeant Lank tells him, well, why don't you go out into the parking lot, see if her vehicle's there. Here's what the vehicle is. Here's the plate. They go out and they look, and the car is covered with snow still. And so this is on February 4th, and it hadn't snowed since February 2nd, so they know that the vehicle hasn't been moved.
And what year was it?
This was in 2021.
So this, mind you, this is not long before the incident with John O'Keefe.
No. So they see the vehicle hasn't been moved. They go in, they make contact with the apartment manager, and I believe they obtain a key. So they go back to the apartment, they knock on the door, still no answer, and so they make entry into this apartment. And they're looking for Sandra. They see the house is a bit of a mess. There's some cats running around. And one of the officers checks the bathroom. The door's closed, lights are off. Nothing there. But he opens the door to the bedroom. And the lights are off in the bedroom, mind you. But that's where he finds Sandra, kind of in a seated position, hanging from what one of them described as I think a handkerchief, and another one described as a strap from the doorknob on the closet. Now there was some lighting in the bedroom. I believe there were some Christmas lights or something around the windows. But that's how they found her. So they, of course, contacted their sergeant again, and he advised them to, kind of lock that scene down, and the investigation started. So
Yeah, I think I had heard it was a strap from like a gym bag or something.
And I believe ultimately that's what it turned out to be. It wasn't a handkerchief.
Yeah, because if it was a handkerchief, then that brings you right into the rabbit hole of the red handkerchief and Kate Spade. And anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. We don't have time for that today.
No.
Anyway.
But so Sandra Birchmore, she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 20. Gosh, she's in her early 20s. Is it 22, 23, something like that, maybe?
I have it down here somewhere, but
I can tell you in 2013, she was 14 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I have in my notes here that in 2019, she was 21. So
she was 22, maybe on the verge of 23. I don't know when her birth date was, but so she's pregnant. And so they found the body. They call in the state police, ultimately, is who does the investigation. And so the trooper with the state police that shows up to conduct the investigation, of course, he sees it has the same observations as everybody else at the time in the room, that it's pretty cluttered. I think the only room that he described as being somewhat neat and clean was the bathroom. Kind of odd for a woman, ain't it?
no,
It's not? Oh.
it totally depends on your personality.
Oh.
And
I
she
get-
was 23 when she
Listen,
died.
I'm a home health nurse. I've seen it all.
Well, I've seen quite a bit myself.
So, yeah, I mean, it just depends.
But so he starts this investigation, and the body's taken to a medical examiner, and he begins his questioning at the school where she worked. They're the ones that made the report that she hadn't shown up. And as he's talking to other employees, there's a couple common themes. One is she likes to overshare, which makes a lot of the employees uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that she overshares is not just the fact that she's pregnant, but that she's pregnant with the baby of is it Stoughton?
Stoughton.
Stoughton police detective's kid.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular detective is married and has children.
Oh, and a baby on the way.
And a baby on the way.
Right. His wife was pregnant at the time, which we'll get into that story.
So anyways, he then goes and begins interviewing some friends. And one thing that I thought was odd, so I'm reading all of these reports by this, it's a Trooper Dune, I believe is how it's pronounced. And she overshares with certain people, but doesn't really share a whole lot with others. So like with her friends, her coworkers, even coworkers that she really doesn't know, she tells them everything, that how she's pregnant with this married police officer's kid, and she's really excited about it. But then with like family members, she's pregnant, but never really divulges who the kid belongs to.
Yeah, I think there's a backstory to that as to why she does that.
What'd you hear?
Well, I mean, she was groomed.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
She's got a little bit of a tumultuous background. She had a lot of death leading up to this in her family. She didn't have a father growing up. She had a stepdad that passed away when she was 9. And then her mom passed away when she was 18, when she was just right after graduation. She had a grandmother that passed away. And then also, I think, a grandfather that passed away, all in kind of a short time frame, or leading up before she was 18, let's put it that way. She was an only child. I think her family history and just a lot of that background set her up to her personality and why the way she was the way she was. Meaning an oversharer, and I think really just grasping for attention, primarily from men, because she didn't have that in her life.
So we didn't mention who this father was other than a police officer. His name is Matthew Farwell. And he's a Stoughton, Stoughton, whatever, Massachusetts detective at the time, police officer. But they met when she was like, before that.
No, they met when she was,
Probably
12.
Well, when she was 12.
When she was
She
12.
joined the program when she was 12.
Yeah. The program, which is the Law Enforcement Explorers Program
Yes.
with the Stoughton Police Department.
Yes.
And also in that program, as mentors, leaders of that program, is Matthew Farwell, his brother Billy, who's also a twin, and what was the other police officer's name?
Robert Devine,
Robert Devine.
which he was the head of the program at the time.
He was the head of the program, yeah.
Yeah, so the Explorers program is just a program for kids to get them involved with different careers, primarily police. I think they can get involved in this program and kind of go up the ladder and then eventually do ride-alongs and things like that. Just kids that might be interested in that type of career, but also to keep them out of trouble.
Yeah, you can kind of imagine like a basic training or a camp similar to what law enforcement goes through, but it's designed for youth, kind of like a Cub Scouts.
Yeah, a basic training type. Because I think in one of the interviews that Robert Devine said, we're treating them like we would at somebody at a training camp, except we're got to go easy on them because they're kids. So
that's where she first meets Matt, Billy, and Mr. Devine.
Yep.
And some grooming begins to take place. So I think it was in early 2013, she's friended on Facebook by Matt. And he begins to kind of help her with some schoolwork initially.
Yeah, that's how it first started, is he offered to tutor her in the library. This started when she was 15. She was a freshman.
Yeah.
And that's how they started. I mean, they had met before, but that's how they started their relationship, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, well, that relationship turned into a sexual relationship.
She was 15, he was 27.
Yeah.
So.
And I've read through some of the early text, and I guess I can't really tell who was I think he was the first one to come out and maybe start taking this relationship in the direction of a sexual relationship.
Yes, because he put his hands on her, so to speak, in the library during one of those tutoring sessions. He fondled her in the library. And I think it kind of, who knows, there might have been some flirting back and forth and some gazing in each other's eyes, who knows, but that's how the physical relationship started, is he touched her in the library.
And I don't know that so law enforcement, when they're conducting their investigation, they didn't find the original messages that went back and forth. However, they seemed to reminisce a lot, and they did get those texts. And they would reminisce about the first time they had sex and he took her virginity. Some more disturbing texts seem to be he had kind of a deal with younger girls, because she had mentioned how at one point in one of their text messages, or asked him if, when they were going to do some role playing, if she wanted to pretend that she was a certain age, and I believe it was pretend she was 14.
Yeah, and just a little bit of information too is she is only 4'11", so she's tiny.
Yeah.
And she looks very young. He is like 6'3" or 6'4", I think they said.
6'4".
And so he's a big guy. And she's little. So for her to role play is not going to be that difficult because of how tiny she is.
But just the simple fact that they're going to role play that she's a 14-year-old still, and he's a grown man, and it's kind of a rape foreplay because in some of those texts, she's supposed to say no, no, no.
Yeah.
And then he
was clearly into some more of the dark side of fantasy and role playing. He wanted her to resist. That's kind of the role he liked for her to play. He liked for her to say no, don't. And then it escalated from there to where he wanted to role play strangulation and that type of thing. So he was clearly into some darker stuff.
What's even more screwed up is there was other people even involved. Mm-hmm. So his brother eventually became involved. And I believe the head of the Explorers also kind of got his toes wet a little bit.
Right.
So all of them were part of this grooming period, which I think took place up until she graduated high school.
Yeah. Yeah. And the relationship kept going with her and Matthew, but he started getting annoyed with her. And people have this theory that allegedly, like, she's growing out of the relationship because she's getting older and wanting things like a family and things like that, and started fantasizing about having a family with him and expressing those aspirations with him. And I think he was like, okay, I got to get out because this is not what I wanted. I wanted this to stay this kind of weird relationship.
Well, and he ultimately got married during this period. So when this whole thing started, he was single. But he meets another woman. They get married. And so he begins having a family with this other woman. And I think Sandra maybe became a little bit jealous because I think she wanted the same thing.
Well, and she was in high school when they got married. So really, realistically, that was, she wasn't going to get married in high school. So she just had to keep playing along with what was happening. She didn't really have a choice. But then, as it went on, and she's older now, she starts getting a little more feisty, so to speak.
Sure.
She starts standing up for herself, and she starts voicing more of her wants, and maybe not playing by his rules quite so much.
No, and one of those wants is she wants a baby.
Yeah.
So she tells him that she wants to have unprotected sex during ovulation? Is that what? I don't know how this stuff works.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
yes.
I never had a calendar.
Yeah, so ultimately, she finds out from a friend that his wife is expecting their third child. And that's kind of when things changed, and she kind of flipped out, and she's like, okay, well, and the jealousy kind of ramped up, and she's like, well, then I want a baby too. Lo and behold, she had actually had a miscarriage.
See, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, she had a miscarriage prior. And so then, now I don't know if it was after she found out the wife was pregnant or if this miscarriage happened before. Either way, once she finds out his wife is pregnant with their third child, that's when she really escalated her kind of demands to him that I want to be pregnant. I want to have your baby. We're going to have unprotected sex, and kind of started this whole ball rolling.
Sure, and those demands kind of had, it was kind of a blackmail situation.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely, because she tells him that she wants this baby, but if he doesn't agree to get her pregnant, then she's going to rat him out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she in her own way had some toxicity.
Sure. Sure. And what was interesting is it started out as one demand, and I think the initial demand was, I want you to get me pregnant. I want to have a baby. And then it moved to, I want you to get me pregnant, and I want you to sign or put your name on the birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went to, okay, we can scrap that because I don't have to have you put your name on the birth certificate because I can put your name on the birth certificate. And then it was, I want you to be supportive of this family. So I want you to be there at the birth of this child, even though the birth of this child is just a couple of months after the birth of his newest child with his wife.
Uh-huh.
And then it was, hey, I want you to schedule some days before the holidays that you can spend some time with our child and see the gifts that I get them and open them. And I want you to be supportive. And I want you to purchase the first baby outfit that our baby comes home from the hospital. So it's almost like she has no problem with like a secret family.
Yeah, and we don't know what conversations they were having behind the scenes. We have these text messages, but anytime anything would get personal, he would say, this is a conversation for in person, or he didn't want to talk about it via text. So whether he was afraid that his wife was going to find his texts or what, but he would always say, let's have this conversation in person. And who knows what he was telling her. Like, he could have been lying and giving her all these, stories that, oh, yeah, one day we'll be together. Like, we don't know.
Did she ever ask him for money?
I don't know if she did. I don't know.
Nothing via text?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Nothing that I saw.
I mean, other than, I want you to go shopping with me and buy the first outfit and that type of thing. I can't remember.
She did ask a friend for some money, and we'll kind of get into that in a second. But one thing I wanted to point out that I thought was funny that you said is there were certain discussions that he wanted to have in person that he didn't want to relay through text messages, which I thought was interesting because he had no problem relaying through a text message that he wanted her to pretend to be 14 years old. He wanted to roll her over and would, do certain sexual things. It's like that can be a text, but...
And share the memes, too. Like, he had the memes that he shared were... Because those were on what they found in his phone also, of texts that he shared were memes that had a lot to do with necrophilia and strangulation and death.
See, I seem to think that when he would tell her this is something we have to have in like a face-to-face, I kind of got the impression that was his way of blowing her off so he didn't have to answer those questions and he could put it off a little bit maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
And maybe it was also something that when they had the face-to-face, he could just come out and say, nah, I'm not doing it. Because this thing did progressively start to go south. And it really started to go south after she'd borrowed some money from a friend and didn't pay that friend back.
I did read about that.
So the friend becomes irritated. And I think this money was borrowed November, December of 2020. So in January of 2021, she calls his police department. You double checking my dates?
No, I'm looking up something else while we're thinking about it. Keep going.
So anyways, in January 21, this friend calls the police department and says, hey, you need to, or she owes me money, and she's kind of reporting it like it's a crime, and they're like, well, there's nothing we can do for you. This is a civil matter. And she goes, well, she's having sex with one of your detectives. She's having sex with Matthew Farwell, so maybe he can tell her to pay me back.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt really freaks out because he was under the impression that even though she was kind of telling everybody, he didn't know that. He was under the impression she was telling absolutely nobody. And now a friend has called into his department and said, oh, hey, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
one of your married detectives is having sex with this girl. She owes me money.
But in the background, he's probably thinking, my brothers in blue have my back. It's no big deal. Maybe.
I don't know, because I know he's pretty furious because that's when he starts sending her text messages that are basically like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why is your friend calling my department?
Yeah. He confronted her with it and said, basically, dude, what's the deal? Like, you told your friend and your friend called my work? Like, what are you doing?
Sure. And if you remember back previously, she's already threatened, if you don't get me pregnant, I'm going to rat you out.
Yeah.
So that started pissing him off. Then the friend calls the police department. That makes him even more mad. She threatens to send a text to his wife that, oh, hey, by the way, your husband's been cheating on you since before you were even married.
Yeah, you had asked about asking for money. I don't know if I'm making this up in my head, if I dreamt about it, or if I read it somewhere, but I feel like she asked him for $4,000 a month and then $3,000 for daycare.
Yes, she did.
Okay. I'm like, that's what I was trying to look up. I'm like, I swear I remember reading that somewhere.
Yeah, she's
definitely trying to extort the situation.
Oh, yeah. The demands keep going up and up and up, and he's becoming more and more pissed off. He actually begins kind of blowing her off and what seems to be kind of trying to cut this thing off. Like he's to a point where, I better get the hell out of here. But now he's locked in. He's a little late now because she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're talking about her as if, she's the problem. I mean, she's clearly not. But, she had her, like I said, her background kind of made her have a little bit different personality as to why she would do some of these things. I mean, because you're in a normal situation. Well, first of all, you wouldn't probably stand for a relationship like this, but,
No, and in our conversation, we are kind of making her sound bad. I mean, she's doing some bad things. I mean, she's... But
then is she just... Maybe she is.
Maybe. I mean, so he was having sex with her when she was 14 years old, groomed her along with his brother, who, another detail that when I was reading his reports, I was just kind of like, what the fuck, is as soon as, excuse me, but in December of 2020, she was also still having sex with his brother. And they both knew that they were both having sex with the same female, and maybe... Did they both
know that? I didn't know if they knew that.
Oh, yeah, I think they both knew that, because I think... Gosh, I was thinking that the brother... Did the brother played interference on Matthew's wife at one point?
I don't know.
When she became suspicious of something. But anyways, I think they were both aware, which I thought was, kind of screwed up.
Well, so how that got started, I found that out, is when she graduated high school, she had reached out to Billy to inquire about the Army and how to get into basic training, basically, of the Army, and was asking him questions. And so she had reached out to him first. And I think from then started another relationship. And like I said, she was a girl who was seeking attention, seeking male attention. She didn't have it growing up, and she had no idea what a healthy relationship looked like. And I think she was starved for that.
And I think the grooming has a lot to do with that, too. It kind of... when you're grooming, I can imagine that especially with a young person's in their mind, that's how you get positive attention.
Right.
Because she was groomed by them three, but then she also, in the course of the investigation, they talked to an individual that worked in animal rescue. And she had actually obtained a cat from this animal rescue person in exchange for sex.
Yeah, I think that's how she learned
Sure.
how to communicate with men.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that results from the grooming that took place between, these authority figures, by the way. These are cops.
And when she's in the Explorer program, she's in the program with pretty much all males, all boys. There's all boys in this program, plus then the ones in charge of the program are male cops.
So another detail I came across, speaking of authority figures, is there was also, and they didn't go into great detail, you had mentioned that Billy Farwell set her up with a recruiter. Apparently, something also happened between her and the recruiter. Because in the reports, the internal investigation, the officer and two actually private detectives that were conducting the internal investigation on both the Farwells and Devine had mentioned that they had information regarding Sandra Birchmore and a recruiter that needed to be turned over to the military so the military could handle their end.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I did not hear that.
So it seems also that any time that she interacts with somebody in some sort of an authority figure, I guess you could say, that it turns sexual. Not healthy.
So a little backstory on the Robert Devine, who is in charge of this. He became in charge of the Explorers program after the chief of police called Cachopa, I believe is how you pronounce it. Cachopa at the time was the chief of police, and he actually got in trouble for a plan for extortion of some sort in the town. And so he was either let go or asked to resign or something to that effect. So this Robert Devine took over the Explorer program after him, and he had some questionable situations with Sandra at the time, and also another female in the Explorers program. Now, I don't think her and Sandra were in the Explorers program at the same time. But according to what happened with Sandra, how their relationship got started was she had come into his office and was asking questions, and he picked her up and put her on his desk and said, "Oh, the things I would like to do to you, but I have to wait till you're 18," type of situation. The other girl had expressed or written down her infatuation with him and that he was in love with him. She was in love with him in her diary or something in her room, and her mom found it. And her mom immediately went to the police department and said, "Dude, what the frick is going on? Why is my daughter expressing her love for you and that how infatuated she is with you?" And, pulled her out of the Explorer program and kind of brought everybody's attention to it, but then nothing happened. So nothing came of it. But he was kind of known to have a little bit of interest in the younger females. And then he actually ended up having an affair on his wife with a gal. And that situation, she ended up becoming pissed off at him for something. And so she ended up sending pictures of the two of them together to the entire police force and their spouses. to get him in trouble. So at that point, then he was demoted to just a ticket cop, basically. So
I think it's fair to say that the Law Enforcement Explorers program in Stoughton, Massachusetts was a shit show. I mean, it was just like a bunch of perverts, pedophiles.
Stoughton, Canton, Boston.
Yeah.
The whole town of Massachusetts, we have to really look at the whole...
Well, the whole state.
The whole state. The whole state is just a dumpster fire of law officers.
Yeah. So now we're into January. And a call's been made to the police department. So that now the police department is aware of what's going on. And one of the members of the police department actually contacted Matt and said, hey, just, some girl called in and said that you're having an affair with this Sandra Birchmore. And so he's pissed off. So he's gradually gotten pissed off from the demands that she's made. She's constantly changing those demands from get me pregnant, sign the birth certificate, be there at the birth of the child, show up at holidays, and now this. But an interesting thing happens with his text messages and his conduct towards her. All of a sudden, he becomes nice. Mm-hmm. Because there was all this conflict where they weren't getting along and they're going back and forth and he's pissed off. And then all of a sudden he shows up and he's nice.
He's all nicey nice and sweet and attentive and agreeing to what she's asking for. And it did make her suspicious.
It did, because she'd sent a text message to one of her friends and talked about how he'd showed up. And I think he had brought her whatever the heck she was drinking, like some sort of a soda. But what she found odd is while he's in the apartment, something else is before he didn't want a key, wanted nothing to do with a key to her apartment. But now I'll take a key to your apartment. So anyways, he had showed up to the apartment, and he's being nice, but he's also kind of walking around the apartment and looking at rooms and looking in closets. And she even noticed that the behavior was odd. Nice, but seemed weird.
Yeah, and to add to what you just said, he not only asked for a key, and she went to Walmart and made him a key, but he asked for the passcode to get in also.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the passcode to get into she's in an apartment complex, so you have to have that passcode to get in, and then you have to have the actual key to the apartment.
Yeah.
He specifically says, okay, well, does this passcode, is it directly correlated to you, or is it just a general passcode that everybody in the apartment complex can get in? He was really wanting to know that, because I don't think he wanted tied into going into her apartment if it was correlated with her apartment. So, and it was a general code, so he was put at ease for that.
So this is into, I think this is mid-late January. If I remember right, it's right around January 24th. So skip ahead just a little bit to then February 4th is when she's found deceased. And they're going through video, and that's when they discover that, lo and behold, the last visitor she has before she's found dead is Matthew Farwell.
Well, they at first didn't know, because he came in wearing a hooded coat and a COVID mask.
Which was later pointed out that he was anti-COVID mask. And he would only wear that mask when he absolutely had to, was forced to by the department. Other than that, he wasn't wearing it. And so, getting back to this being originally ruled a suicide, which it probably would have stayed had her estate, I'm guessing aunts, uncles, or whoever's involved in the estate, they suspect otherwise. And what got their suspicion was when they must have gotten a hold of some of these photographs of the scene. And they noticed something strange. Because during the initial investigation, when they were examining the body, they said, well, we saw no signs of struggle. We didn't see any marks on her that indicated that any defensive wounds, anything like that. So they really saw no evidence of anything other than she was seated and choked herself out, supposedly hung herself. But the family points out there's something odd. She wears a necklace, and that necklace was located like 12 feet from her body, and the necklace was broke, and there's hair in it. And there was no reason for them to believe that why would this necklace be broken off her neck and hair entangled up in the necklace itself?
Yeah. And also the fact that she really didn't show any signs that she was suicidal. She was making plans. She, that day had just called to make, I think, some prenatal visits to the doctor. She was doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, she was excited for this baby.
Yeah.
She was going to have a kid.
Yeah.
That turned out to not be Matthew's.
Yeah.
I did later hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, so the family, I think the family initially, they requested their own autopsy. And on the initial autopsy, they noted no injuries other than, is it the hyoid bone?
The hyoid bone was
broken, which is more common in a strangulation than in a hanging, but it can happen in a hanging. However, it has to be a forceful hanging. And so I was thinking about that she was in a seated position hanging from a doorknob on a closet. So for it to be forceful, she would almost have to tie that around her neck and then plop down. That would be the only, because...
Yeah, and your body's instinct kicks in.
Yeah.
The natural instinct kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that urge to not
Sure.
not do that and get away from it. So I think in a seated position, no. I just don't buy it.
So yeah, so they're doing the second autopsy, and you're like, well, yeah, there's this necklace, so that's odd. But then they notice more. So you mentioned that a person's natural reaction is to fight to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that wasn't pointed out in the initial autopsy is there was some damage to her face. So not only was she found bleeding from the mouth, but this second autopsy revealed that there was some damage, like some scuffing or scratches or marks on her nose. And they said that that's often seen when somebody's being suffocated, like with a hand over the nose, and the person is fighting and struggling to get away so they can breathe, that it causes that sort of damage on the nose itself.
Huh. And I think there's petechiae too, which I don't think there's petechiae in a sudden hanging.
I don't know. But there was one other thing that was very strange. So she hung herself with this strap. And the buckle on that strap was by her ear. That's how they found her. The other thing they noticed, there was an impression of that strap on her chest.
Oh, yeah.
Which was not consistent with
No.
the way she was hanging. So...
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I think you could assume that in the struggle that he might have been, and this is just a theory, all this has to be alleged now because this hasn't gone to court yet,
Right.
at least the trial, that perhaps he had at one point his hand over her mouth. He was trying to suffocate her. She's fighting. That's where the damage on the nose comes in. And possibly the necklace gets broke off. And he's also got a hold of her. And when the necklace breaks, she's trying to claw his hands away. She maybe gets a hold of some hair and some necklace, breaks the necklace, possibly. And that he's also going to choke her out with this strap. But that part of the strap of the buckles possibly either on top of her and he's on top of that, or she's face down and his weight is on her back, pressing this buckle of the strap into her chest, causing that impression.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, the second autopsy, the result of that was homicide, is what that doctor determined.
It makes you wonder, he's already asked her to perform sexual activities involving strangulation. So it's not unlikely to think he went up for a rendezvous, asked her to do some of the same stuff, and got her right in that position where he wanted her.
Sure.
Not that hard.
And maybe she didn't figure it out until all of a sudden, I can't breathe for longer than I normally could breathe. This is real. So after that autopsy, I think that the FBI becomes involved. And I don't know if the family or maybe it was whoever performed the autopsy, that medical examiner turned it over to the FBI, but the FBI gets involved. And so they do a third autopsy. And the result of that autopsy was exactly the same as the second autopsy.
The private one.
They noticed the damage to her nose. They pointed out that this necklace was broke also 12 feet from her body with hair in it. They noticed the impression on the chest of that buckle. And they also pointed out the fact that although from a hanging you can break that bone, from the way that she was hanging in a seated position from a door handle is highly unlikely, because there would have to be something more traumatic going on to actually break that bone. So if you were hanging and it was a jerking type of hang, like the floor comes out from underneath you, you step off of a ladder, possibly. But it does take some force to break that bone. Uh-huh. And simply just going into a seated position
it's too
from
subtle.
A door handle, too subtle, probably not going to break it. So now the FBI is involved, and they start conducting their own investigation and ultimately determine that, no, this is a homicide. And based on the fact that something else, not only was he the last person in the apartment, but they had her cell phone. Mm-hmm. And so they began looking at the activity on a cell phone. I believe it was an iPhone that tracked health. And there was like steps being taken up until 9:40, and then it stopped. He doesn't leave the apartment till 9:48.
Yeah. Yep.
So
we're at 52.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if you wanted to get into this, but I had read a little bit of background about Matthew Farwell, because you think, we're talking about all this corruption, and how do they get this way? But they had said that him and his twin brother Billy were not the best students, so to speak, and he didn't even graduate high school. He went and got his GED.
He got a GED.
Yeah. And was in some kind of trouble. And when they were in the Explorers program, they actually got in trouble for impersonating police officers. So they took the uniforms and the police cars and they were pulling people over.
Oh boy.
While they were in this Explorers program. Yeah. So then what happens is, they get a little bit older, and this Robert Devine, who I talked about earlier, he invites them to come and be some youth leaders in this Explorers program. All of that activity, all of that was just, boys will be boys. So they already had this idea, they're watching this Robert Devine, who's in charge, already do some shady activity. And so I just think that's just the way they roll.
Well, and I think that people who have similar, not only personalities, but maybe thought processes. So you have all of these guys that probably have some sort of a perverted sex type mentality. They're okay with the young girls. They kind of all come together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So become
Again,
buddies.
it's a brotherhood.
Yeah.
I don't know. Definitely some
Yeah.
not so stellar activity going on in Massachusetts.
No, this won't be the last one we cover from Massachusetts either.
Oh, no. No.
So we're talking from 2018 to present. It seems like there's something almost every single year. And we're not talking small time, taking a bribe, or we're talking like national news stuff.
Yeah.
Massachusetts is not that big. I mean, we're not talking Texas, California. It's Massachusetts.
We complain about living in Nebraska. There's no way you could pay me to go live in that area of Massachusetts. No way.
So since then, Matthew, he's been arrested.
Yeah.
There's been a grand jury investigation, and they've indicted him, and so he's been indicted for the murder of Sandra Birchmore that was originally ruled a suicide. Mm-hmm. And there's probably going to be a trial coming up soon. So we'll probably have a part 2.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe a 3.
And, we talk about some of those same characters, but that the officer Garino, he was mentioned in the Karen Reed trial. He was the one that extracted the text messages from the individual's phones and how he missed some text messages between those parties involved. He just so happened to miss like 3,000 text messages between Farwell and Sandra.
Well, there was also Sergeant Lank, mm-hmm. and there was also a detective. The detective's last name was the same as the homeowner where O'Keefe's body was found.
Kevin Alberts.
Yes, Detective Alberts.
Kevin Alberts.
So I did see his name pop up in the investigation.
Yeah.
So
Brian Albert.
It certainly becomes suspicious. I mean, there was a lot of details that were completely overlooked. Now, were they overlooked on accident, or are these departments in that area just? I mean,
are they just not trained to do stellar police work? I mean, is it just their mentality to just do lazy work?
I think it's lazy work.
I mean, unreal.
Now, I will say, and gosh, I hate to even offer any defense for the piss poor investigative work, but suicides would probably be the most overlooked type of a death if you're going to continue on with an investigation. And there is the state trooper that I read most of the reports on this, Dune. I'll give him some credit. That guy interviewed a ton of people, and it almost seemed like he was onto something. And I don't know what happened, but I will tell you, in about April, like he's constantly writing reports, interview, all through February, all through March. He gets into April, all of a sudden stops, and now a sergeant takes over. So all the reports from there on out are all from this sergeant, and it goes like a month and a half, 2 months, and he clears Matthew of any wrongdoing, like any involvement. Matter of fact, he cleared him shortly after Matthew's attorney contacted him and said, hey, we're not going to submit to a polygraph. You're not going to do any more interviews. We're not going to do any DNA work. And then shortly after that, the sergeant says, well, he's clear.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, should we close this one out till next time?
Yep. And, you just never know. We might be talking about another case out of that area.
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be more than one.
Stay tuned.
All right. We'll catch you later.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.